Investors did react positively to Zuckerberg's performance. Shares of the social media company were up 4.5%. Mark Zuckerberg returns to Capitol Hill this morning. He's set to testify before House lawmakers. Joining us now, Gabelli Multimedia Trust Portfolio Manager Larry Haverty. Larry, my takeaway, if you looking at it from a market perspective and an investor perspective, is even without additional regulations, which might be coming, Facebook's going to be spending a lot more money on security, on policing the content on that social media platform. Is that fully factored into the stock, their increase in expenses?
Well, I think that's the $64,000 question here. There are two contexts that, I think this discussion needs to be framed in. The first is the emotional context, and that was the theater that the congressional grilling provided for viewers yesterday. 5 hours is an awfully long time, and I think Mark did very, very well on that. I'd give him an A- grade. I thought the best answer was the hotel one, and I thought he gave the wrong answer when I heard it, but then I thought maybe it was the right answer because he does need to maintain his personal security, and frankly, it isn't anyone's real business where he stays. The second question remains unanswered, though, and that's the financial question. And you look at what Facebook's doing. They've said they're going to add 5,000 people. That's a good crowd for a small college basketball game. Those people are going to need facilities. I think that's at least $1 billion cost. That raises the cost base on Facebook by a very significant amount. Now, this is a company with very, very strong margins. My guess is that the margins are going to go down at least 500 points. But I think we have to wait 2 weeks to more or less figure this out when Facebook reports its first quarter. And I'm pretty sure if the people gave Zuckerberg the advice they did and he performed as well as he did, the crisis managers are going to tell them how to handle the earnings release, which I think is to be upfront with the costs on this as much as possible. And I think that's not 100%. They're not going to know until, probably a year later how much they spent. There'll clearly be a significant one-time charge, but with $41 billion, that's not a big deal. Net, the stock had been, in my opinion, if nothing went wrong, and clearly that's no longer the case, the stock had been priced very cheaply relative to its growth. And I think it can handle this once the computers that are trained, especially in technology investments, to detect margin contraction, get through with selling the stock the minute the numbers come out, because I think there will be margin pressure greater than people expect. Right. And I think once the numbers come out, the first trade will be down on the stock.
Lindsay,
in a couple
what was your
weeks.
take yesterday on what happened?
Well, I think the stock was up because, this could have been just a relief rally, or maybe it was a short squeeze, excuse me. Larry, I'd love to get your take, though. When I think about Facebook, I wonder about the future of this company, because you had Mark Zuckerberg out there talking to the press saying, and to senators saying that, look, we are kind of like a media company. You are seeing expenses going up. You're going to see margin compression. Trading at 22 times, yes, that's a huge discount to its historical average, but it's still a premium to media companies. Where is this company going to evolve to? You've got Cheryl and Mark talking about, paid subscription services. What is the future of Facebook, and what's the right valuation to value it at?
Oh, I think the secret sauce here is very important, and that's the first thing I learned about this company, and mercifully I learned it before it went public from talking with some people who did business with the company. The advertising works, and it's very unique. You have David Ogilvy, one of the advertising gurus historically. 50% of advertising works. I just don't know which 50%. Facebook can prove its efficacy. It's more efficient than alternatives. So advertisers, unless there are real major problems, are going to embrace it. They're not going to walk away. A few may walk away. My guess is maybe you lose 2 to 3% on ad volume. You're clearly going to have cautious CPM pricing for the next 12 months, and then I think the systems will right themselves.
CPM being
this
cost
company
per
has a
million
tremendous
views.
comparative advantage versus comp.
Cost
Tremendous.
per thousand, CPN, cost per thousand views.
Yeah,
Ankur,
cost per thousand.
I want to get your take on what you heard about regulation from these senators yesterday, because it's not going to be just Facebook.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, are you worried about Washington getting in the way of innovation and creation?
So I think, look, let's break it out. One, Zuck said himself that Facebook is open to the right kind of regulation. I think, secondly, it's really not just a Facebook problem, right? I mean, Google has as much or more data on users than Facebook does. So the question is, what's the right kind of regulation?
Yep.
After watching the congressmen yesterday ask their questions, I worry that if they're left to create regulation, it'll do things that stifle innovation and actually block the services that actual people
We never
love.
got to that question about what the right. I mean, maybe we did. I didn't see the entire, whatever it was, 5 or 6 hours. But from what I saw, we never got to your question, which is what is the right type of regulation? Kamala Harris, the senator from California, maybe came closest, and she tried to press him. I think it was in the 6 o'clock hour Eastern time, talking about the Cambridge Analytica data breach. Is like, why didn't you tell the users about that? It's like, we know that they're taking our data. We know they're using it for advertising to make it more targeted. But once there's a breach, why weren't the users told about that? And what type of regulation can help prevent that in the future,
So
which he dodged?
The common theme you saw throughout Zuck's testimony was transparency.
Right.
And I think that is ultimately where the right regulation goes, is that as long as these companies are transparent about what they're doing with data, what's happening with the data, I think at that point it's the users' decisions on how much they want to give Facebook, how much they want to use Facebook, et cetera. And so hopefully the Congress will lean towards that kind of regulation.
But I will end on this note. Well, one, Sheryl Sandberg needs the same kind of grilling from the legal team that Mark Zuckerberg does, because, again, her kind of like flip, hair toss reaction to what's been going on at Facebook for the last decade is a little dismissive to investors. And two, what was ironic was listening to those senators ask Mark Zuckerberg those questions was the equivalent of watching my 82-year-old father try to use Facebook for the first time.
That's right.
That he was like, it was the equivalent of like flicking the phone like there's a bug on it and then dimming the screen to the point that he throws the phone at you and tells you that Facebook broke his phone.
If Facebook does
That's
have
what it
access
felt
to
like.
people's call records, I'd love for them to release how many congressmen called their grandkids that morning and say, can you please quickly walk me through Facebook before I interview this Mark guy.
It was embarrassing. It actually was. A bunch of times it was embarrassing. It was ridiculous. I mean, it's almost like when we do an interview with someone, you a lot of times you know the subject, you're ready to follow up like this, but if you don't know the topic, you can ask the first question, forget about the follow-ups. And that happened a ton yesterday.
But fear the wily Southerner, because I think Lindsey Graham acted all folksy and very foghorn leghorn, but then he backed Mark into trying to basically asking him if you have a monopoly. And so I thought that he was like, go ahead, assume that I'm stupid because I'm from the South. And then he went in for the kill shot.
That was definitely a smart point.
Thank you, Ankur. Larry, it was great to have you here. Terrific analysis as always. Please come back very, very soon. Larry Haverty. And
Thanks a lot.